Am I the a-hole for refusing to help my parents out financially because they only help my siblings and never me? I'm 30 male, the oldest of 5, and my siblings are 28 female, 27 male, 25 male, and 23 female. Our parents were always generous with giving money when asked, except when it came to me. I was told I should learn to work hard. I was told I didn't need a new video game or toy. I was told earning money was the only way I'd ever have money, and I hadn't earned money from them. But my siblings could get whatever they wanted. When I first graduated college, I ended up struggling financially because the area where I worked had such high apartment costs. I asked my parents if they could help me out, and they said no. I ended up staying in a shelter for a few weeks, and then rented a dump of an apartment with a friend who was in the same situation. They not only helped my siblings through college, which they didn't do for me, but they gave each of them lump sums after they graduated to help them get started in life. They also helped them out financially whenever they asked, especially during the COVID years. They didn't offer any money to help with mine and my wife's wedding. We didn't ask, but it stood out even more when my sister, 28 female, got engaged, and our parents mentioned they were setting aside money for all the weddings. Again, it was all the weddings except for mine. Now all this has caught up with them, and they are in a very tight financial spot, and they're asking me for money too. They told me they need mine and my wife's help and that we should do it, because they've been so generous and never said no to any of us. I told them they never helped me with anything, that they preferred to see me homeless rather than help me out. They argued back, claiming that never happened, and I could have asked if things were that bad. I showed them screenshots of texts where I had brought up the topic after asking them verbally. My parents dismissed it and told me they're still my parents. And since I'm the most financially settled, I could afford to help them. I admitted that I could, but I didn't feel they had earned it. My parents called me spiteful and said I should help them rather than let them lose everything. I told them to ask the kids they actually helped. My siblings were also mad that I said no. They told me mom and dad don't deserve my pettiness. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. I told them they never helped me with anything, that they preferred to see me homeless rather than help me out. They argued back, claiming that never happened and I could have asked if things were that bad. I showed them screenshots of texts where I had brought up the topic after asking them verbally. I'm puzzled by this. I wonder if you were also the family scapegoat. Whatever the reason, kudos to you for achieving what you have despite the hardship you went through. My siblings were also pissed I said no, told me mom and dad don't deserve my pettiness. It isn't pettiness though, is it? You're just declining to use the resources you earned through your own hard work. Your siblings can reciprocate for what your parents did for them. I want to add my congratulations for working through all of this dreadful parental behavior and getting your life together. And just to say, be careful. There's always going to be a part of you that wants their approval. And I think it's that part of you that might want to help them. Even if you gave them millions, it would be dismissed as lightly as they dismissed your homelessness. And they'd probably attribute it to their favorite child. You'll never get the approval or recognition. Have you considered going no contact? And probably a bit of therapy wouldn't hurt. Not the a-hole. You are the black sheep, expected to pick up the pieces for everybody else. But nothing is ever reciprocated or appreciated. My parents literally had me driving them around to help my sister find her second house, while I was homeless when my ex changed the locks in our co-owned home. They paid for her divorce attorney and wouldn't help me get winter clothes. They hung up on me when a mechanic ripped me off, even though they had 5 vehicles sitting in their driveway. The stress of my separation and divorce led to dozens of hospitalizations and ER visits. Not a call, visit, etc. Nothing. Then I got cursed out for not driving 2 hours to visit them when they were in the hospital. My mother has literally thrown hospital trays at me when I did visit. So, you can help, but it won't be appreciated or reciprocated. My parents were wealthy, so I didn't have that kind of pressure. But I totally get the one-sidedness problem you're facing. Why can't they get support from your siblings that they helped out? People who are used to taking are usually hard-pressed to give. Same thing happened to me and my mom. She put out her hard-earned money to buy cars, bikes to my spoiled little brother, only for him to claim the insurance money once the car totaled. Takers are also bottomless. There's only so much anyone can give, but takers can take forever. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not giving the dollhouse I built to my niece, but to my wife as a gift? It's not a dollhouse, but I didn't want anyone to think I was being misleading on purpose by saying I built a house. I, 28 male, made my wife, 28 female, a replica of a house that's known to fans of a musician but wouldn't mean much to others. It was about 2 feet tall and wasn't very complicated to build, but my wife had said a few times over the last year that she thought it would be cool to have 4 little trinkets. She's like a crow with her trinkets. I love it. She didn't know I was making it for her, but I sneakily involved her in its creation by having her make a couple of TikToks when we were out together so I could get the colors right. She has no idea, lol. I was excited, so I showed a picture to my brother. He told me it was cool but didn't get the purpose. He showed it to my step-niece, Ava, 13 female, who knew what it was and said she wanted one too. My brother asked if I would give it to Ava for her birthday. I said no, it's for my wife, but I could make one with Ava. I would help teach her some basic woodworking skills, which they don't teach in schools anymore. I thought that would be a good compromise. My brother said if it was so easy, I could make a second one for my wife and just give this one to Ava since her birthday is at the end of the month. Again, I said no. This was done specifically for my wife. He seemed to accept that, but then came back and said, "Isn't it a little weird to make a dollhouse for an adult woman?" I told him it's not a dollhouse, just a fancy shelf. He argued that makes it worse, because Ava would actually play with it. He must have complained to our mom, he's the younger brother, because she called me to tell me it was stupid to give my wife a dollhouse. I tried to explain that it's not a dollhouse, but she kept saying that's stupid. This weekend, I was at their house and Ava kept bringing up the house, laying it on thick with statements like, "I've always wanted one just like it." She kept asking why my wife wanted a dollhouse. I said it's not a dollhouse, but she kept pressing, asking why she needed a dollhouse. I told my brother he was encouraging his kid to be manipulative, and I really didn't like it, so I decided to leave. He told me I was dangling the house over her head like McDonald's and teasing her, and that it made me a bad uncle. Being a good uncle is important to me, and I do feel for the girl because she's a big fan too. I admit I might have a blind spot here because I don't have kids, and maybe I shouldn't have shared a picture with my brother to begin with. Am I really the a-hole for not just giving it to her? Yes, it was easy to make, and I could make another quickly. I'm guessing the dollhouse is a replica of the lover house. If it's anything like I'm imagining or what I've seen online, it is more like a fancy storage display for her Taylor Swift memorabilia, rather than a toy anyway. Not the a-hole in either case, Hopi. It's your creation that you get to give to whoever you want. Yeah, it's the lover house. Lol, I didn't know if I said that directly, if it was going to affect what people said, because of how weird people are about her. I think it's awesome present for your wife, and your brother is being an entitled jerk who's raising his stepdaughter to be an entitled jerk, not the a-hole. I wouldn't be surprised if your brother told Ava, "Of course you can have it." I'm a little worried that he did that and told her that. This whole thing of crying to mommy and her getting involved is really strange to me. It's really not her concern. I can't imagine getting in the middle of my son's disagreements. Did she baby younger brother? Oh yeah, he's the baby of the family and always will be. His mom's favorite because he was planned. Lol. Next story. Am I the a-hole for paying for one daughter's wedding? I, 45 female, am married to John, 50 male. We have 2 daughters. Hannah, 25 female, who we had together, and Alexa, 30 female, who is from John's previous relationship. Alexa, being the older child, always got everything new, while Hannah often got hand-me-downs. She rarely had things of her own, so I wanted to make her wedding special. Both of the girls are now engaged. I told Hannah I would pay for her wedding as I have been saving for it her whole life. Alexa asked John if he and her biological mom would be paying for her wedding, and he said no. She told her she should plan a wedding within the budget she and her fiancé can afford. Recently, the girls went to lunch together and Alexa found out I was paying for Hannah's wedding. Alexa called John crying, saying it was unfair that I was covering the costs of Hannah's wedding. John now thinks we should split the money evenly between the two girls. I told him no because I was the one who had been saving the money. I suggested that if he wanted to help Alexa with her wedding, she should speak to her mom and figure out how they could contribute. John then asked if I would be willing to give Alexa any leftover money after Hannah's wedding. I told him no, that I was giving Hannah the entire account, and she could spend the money as she wished. Edit. To answer some common questions, when I got pregnant with Hannah, John asked me to be a stay-at-home mom. During that time, John managed all the finances. This is why Hannah often had hand-me-downs. John said he wouldn't buy new things if we already had something that worked. I started working again when Hannah was 10. At that time, John and I agreed to split Alexa's costs with her mom, while I would take care of Hannah's expenses. During that conversation, I told John I would also be creating a savings account for Hannah. I mentioned that I hoped to save enough for either her wedding or a down payment on a house. After that, we didn't discuss it again as there was no need. Once I started working, our finances were kept separate. Alexa's mom had full custody, and we only had her every other weekend. During those weekends, John made all the parenting decisions for her. Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. That is indeed a talk that should be between Alexa's parents. I think there is more to this story than we're getting. Hannah is John and Opie's daughter, but it sounds like John didn't know about the money being saved. It seems odd that he wouldn't have taken similar action or discussed this years ago. Certainly, he must have known that Opie was saving since Hannah's birth. John has realized what a bad parent has been by not providing for his daughter as you have for yours. Now he's trying to make it your problem. It's not. It's his and his ex. Give Hannah the money and don't be an a-hole to her. Not the a-hole. She has two parents to pay for her wedding. Your husband is just trying to look like a good guy to his daughter without having to spend any money on her. Stick to your guns. Sounds like your daughter deserves this win. Exactly. Clearly, when Opie communicated that she'd been saving for Hannah independently, John brushed it off. He likely thought, cool, whatever, and didn't give it a second thought. Hannah is lucky to have a parent to plan ahead. John's now trying to weasel money out of savings that was always intended for Hannah because he realizes how bad it looks that he didn't save for Alexa. Mini update. Hannah told her fiancé what had happened. Hannah's fiancé is an only child, and his parents said they would pay for half the wedding. I told Hannah the money is still hers, and she can use it for the other half, and to use the leftover money towards a house. Her and her fiancé are very grateful. I told her that tomorrow, I'd go talk to someone about getting the money in a trust of some kind in her name, since right now it's in a savings account with both of our names. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister-in-law my father-in-law doesn't owe her a house? When my husband and I got married, his parents, divorced but still best friends, bought us a house as a wedding gift. I think it's relevant to say that my husband and I have been together since high school, and his parents are good friends of my family. My father-in-law has been remarried since my husband Lee was in middle school, and his new wife, let's call her Patty, brought along a daughter Lee's age into the marriage. For simplicity, I'll call her Eli. Eli has always had an involved dad and doesn't have a father-daughter relationship with my father-in-law. Her dad is well off, but has 5 other kids, so is not able to be as generous as my father-in-law who has only Lee as his child. Eli's getting married in a month, and she came over unexpectedly yesterday to rant because she found out that father-in-law isn't getting her and her fiancée Dora a house for their wedding present. Lee and I listened to her and Dora's rant, but Lee got upset and had to excuse himself after Dora started insinuating that father-in-law might be homophobic. I told them plainly that they were being ungrateful because father-in-law is covering their 2-month-long honeymoon expenses and paying for a portion of their wedding. He only did the latter for Lee and me. I also added that father-in-law and mother-in-law paid for the house together, so it wasn't just him. And for the record, Patty didn't contribute whatsoever, despite being Lee's stepmom, but I guess that's not relevant here. Dora and Eli both got mad at me, claiming I was defending a bigot, and stormed out. Since then, I've been asked not to attend the wedding. Patty sided with Eli and is now not on good terms with father-in-law, who feels hurt and unappreciated despite his generous contributions. So am I the a-hole for telling my sister-in-law she's not entitled to a house? Edit, I forgot to add that Eli and Dora have only been together for a year and a half. They decided to get engaged spontaneously at Patty's Thanksgiving dinner. Not the a-hole. Your father-in-law and mother-in-law paid for the house for you and their son, not your father-in-law's current wife. I have no idea of your current age, but I'm going to assume early to mid-20s. Correct me if I'm wrong. So father-in-law married his current wife when your husband and Eli were around 11 to 14 years old. Why does Eli think that he should buy them a house, pay for their 2-month honeymoon, and part of their wedding, when she doesn't see him as a parent, and her soon-to-be wife calls him a bigot? Why don't you and your husband invite his dad to stay with you for a while? His wife isn't on good terms with him because of her daughter, and is feeling used. Show him that this isn't the case. He needs to feel appreciated, and you and your husband are just the people to show him that he is. None of you did anything wrong, and he could use some real affection right now, instead of being seen as a walking bank account. Yes, I'm 26. Also, yes, I think I will. Lee loves his dad and is a great grandpa to our little one. I think it'll be fun. Thank you. I'll bring it up with Lee. I'm glad that I could suggest something helpful. I get extremely ticked off when people decide to label someone a bigot just because they aren't getting exactly what they want. He's already dropping tens of thousands of dollars on them for half their wedding and a 2-month honeymoon. He doesn't deserve to be treated so badly. Not the a-hole. But have you and your husband told father-in-law that his stepdaughter and her fiancé are going around calling him a bigot and homophobic? Because he should really know they're bad-mouthing him, even though he's paying money toward their wedding and honeymoon. This is probably our bad, but we haven't. He's a good, if not sensitive man. I think he'd be saddened to hear it. I can understand why you'd want to protect him, but if sister-in-law is going around and tarnishing his reputation by calling him a bigot, what's worse? Hurting his feelings or letting others believe those false accusations? Imagine if he goes to the wedding and over half the guests ignore or snub him because they listen to sister-in-law and her fiancé talk badly about him.